The first thing anyone noticed was the sound of glass shattering. It echoed across the elegant rooftop restaurant like a gunshot, freezing every conversation mid-sentence. A chandelier swayed slightly above the marble tables, and dozens of wealthy guests turned their heads toward the balcony where the city lights glittered far below. And there, standing dangerously close to the edge, was one of the most powerful women in the country, a CEO whose name appeared in business magazines and billion-dollar headlines. But in that moment, none of her wealth mattered because the railing had just broken. Her heel slipped. Her body lurched forward toward the darkness beyond the balcony. And before anyone could even scream, someone ran. A man nobody noticed before. A man wearing simple clothes that looked completely out of place among tailored suits and glittering dresses. In a single desperate motion, he lunged forward and grabbed her arm just as her body tipped past the edge. For one terrifying second, both of them hung there, her suspended over the 20-story drop, his muscles straining as the crowd gasped in horror. And that moment changed two lives forever. Before we continue, take a quick moment to support the channel. If you believe the world still needs kindness, second chances, and people brave enough to help strangers, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in good hearts, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe so you never miss stories that remind us humanity still exists. Now let's go back to that night. The CEO's name was Evelyn Carter. At just 38 years old, she had built Carter Innovations into one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the world. She was admired, feared, envied, and constantly watched by the media. Investors followed her every move, competitors tried to copy her strategies, and millions of employees across her companies saw her as an unstoppable leader. But the truth was much more complicated. For the past year, Evelyn had been fighting the hardest battle of her life. Her company was under intense pressure from a hostile takeover attempt. Lawsuits, boardroom betrayals, sleepless nights, and endless negotiations had drained her physically and emotionally. She was strong in front of cameras, but inside, she was exhausted. The charity gala that night was supposed to be a moment of relief, a formal event filled with donors, executives, celebrities, and investors, all celebrating a foundation that supported struggling families. But fate had other plans. Because when the railing snapped and Evelyn's body began to fall, the man who grabbed her arm was not a guest. His name was Daniel Reyes, and no one there knew him. Daniel had arrived earlier that evening with his 6-year-old daughter, Sophia. They had come quietly through the service entrance because Daniel worked temporary jobs, cleaning, carrying equipment, fixing small repairs for event staff when needed. The gala organizer had hired extra help that night, and Daniel needed every dollar he could earn. Life had not been kind to him lately. 2 years earlier, Daniel had lost his wife in a sudden illness. The hospital bills swallowed everything he had saved. His stable job disappeared soon after, and since then he had been doing whatever work he could find just to keep a roof over his daughter's head. Sophia was the only thing that kept him moving forward. Every morning she woke up smiling, believing her father was the strongest man in the world. Daniel worked 3 jobs just to protect that belief. That night, Sophia had been sitting quietly in a corner near the kitchen with a small coloring book while Daniel carried trays and moved chairs for the staff. She loved watching the fancy dresses and bright lights, whispering to herself that it looked like a fairy tale castle. Neither of them expected to witness something unforgettable. When the railing snapped, Daniel's instincts moved faster than his thoughts. He ran. And suddenly he was holding on to the arm of one of the most powerful CEOs in the country while her life literally hung from his grip. The guests screamed. Someone dropped a wine glass. Security rushed forward. With every ounce of strength he had, Daniel pulled Evelyn back onto the balcony floor. Both of them collapsed against the marble tiles as the crowd surrounded them in shock. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Evelyn stared at the man who had just saved her life. His shirt was worn. His hands were rough from years of hard labor. His breathing was heavy, but his eyes held something rare, a quiet calm that didn't match the chaos around them. And before anyone could even ask his name, Daniel simply stood up. He nodded once to make sure she was safe. Then he walked away. No dramatic moment, no attention, no applause. Just a quiet disappearance back into the staff hall. By the time security and event organizers tried to find him, he was gone. Evelyn Carter survived that night, but something inside her had changed. For weeks afterward, the moment replayed in her mind again and again. The feeling of falling, the strong hand grabbing her arm, the steady eyes of the stranger who refused recognition. She ordered her security team to identify him. No luck. The guest list didn't include him. Security footage only showed a brief moment before he disappeared through the service corridor. Even the event staff couldn't remember his name clearly. The man who saved the CEO's life had vanished like a ghost. But Evelyn wasn't the kind of person who forgot debts. 3 months passed. 3 months passed. Business headlines continued. The takeover battle finally ended in Evelyn's favor, making her even more powerful in the corporate world. Reporters praised her resilience. Investors celebrated her victory. But in quiet moments, she still thought about the man on the balcony. Then one afternoon, something unexpected happened. Evelyn visited a small community center her company supported, a place that provided meals, education programs, and childcare for struggling families. She walked through the building greeting volunteers and staff politely, something she rarely had time to do before, and that's when she saw him. In the corner of a modest classroom, Daniel Reyes sat beside a tiny table helping his daughter color pictures with crayon. Sophia giggled happily as she tried to draw a bright yellow sun. For a moment, Evelyn simply stood there watching. The memory struck her instantly. The same quiet eyes, the same calm presence. The man who saved her life. But Daniel didn't see her. He was too focused on his daughter. Evelyn approached slowly. Her security team followed a few steps behind, confused by her sudden interest. When Daniel finally looked up and recognized her face, surprise flickered across his expression. Not fear, not excitement, just simple recognition. Evelyn thanked him that day. But what touched her the most was learning the truth about his life. A widowed father, working every job he could find, bringing his daughter to the community center because it was the only safe place she could stay while he worked. The man who saved a billionaire CEO couldn't even afford stable childcare. And yet he never asked for anything, never mentioned the night on the balcony, never tried to use the moment for advantage. That quiet dignity stayed with Evelyn. Weeks later, she made a decision that surprised everyone on her executive team. Carter Innovations announced a new foundation program dedicated to helping single parents rebuild stable lives, offering job opportunities, childcare support, housing assistance, and career training. Reporters praised the initiative, but very few people knew the real inspiration behind it. Daniel Reyes. At first, Daniel resisted Evelyn's offers to help. Pride can be a stubborn thing, especially for someone who has survived hardship with nothing but determination. But Evelyn wasn't offering charity. She offered opportunity, a stable job managing maintenance operations for several company facilities, a salary strong enough to support Sophia's future. Education benefits so he could train in engineering, something he once dreamed about before life forced him onto a different path. Daniel accepted, not for himself, for Sophia. Years passed. Sophia grew up surrounded by opportunity her father never had. She studied hard, laughed often, and never forgot the struggles that shaped her childhood. Daniel built a new career inside Carter Innovations, respected by colleagues for his work ethic and humility. But the most important change wasn't financial. It was something deeper. Daniel and Evelyn developed a quiet friendship built on mutual respect. Two people from completely different worlds connected by a single life-changing moment. Neither of them ever forgot the balcony. Neither of them ever forgot the power of one act of courage. And before we reach the ending of this story, we have a special request for you. If this story reminds you that one small act of kindness can change someone's entire future, please write the word kindness in the comments right now. It helps spread this message further and lets others know that compassion still matters in this world. Because sometimes heroes don't wear suits. Sometimes they wear worn-out work shirts. Sometimes they're just single parents trying to survive another day. But when the moment comes, they still run forward, not for recognition, not for reward, just because someone needs help. And if this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in good people, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach others who need hope today. Because somewhere out there tonight, someone may be standing at the edge of their own difficult moment, and the world still needs people like Daniel Reyes who choose to reach out and pull others back to safety. The truth was, Daniel Reyes never wanted to be anyone's hero. For most of his life, survival had been his only goal. Waking up before sunrise, working until his hands ached, and coming home just in time to see Sophia fall asleep had become his routine. Every sacrifice he made was for one simple reason: to make sure his daughter never felt the weight of the struggles he carried. But after the night he saved Evelyn Carter's life, something quietly shifted in the direction of his future. Not suddenly, not dramatically. Just slowly, like the sunrise creeping over a long dark night. When Daniel began working at Carter Innovations, he approached the opportunity the same way he approached every job he had ever taken, with humility, discipline, and quiet determination. At first, he worked as a maintenance supervisor, responsible for overseeing building repairs and facility operations. Most executives never noticed him. He wore the same simple work clothes and spoke little during meetings. But the people who worked with him noticed something rare. Daniel didn't just fix problems. He cared about the people behind them. If an employee was struggling, he stayed late to help. If a worker's equipment broke, he repaired it himself instead of assigning blame. If someone was having a difficult day, Daniel listened without judgment. Over time, the maintenance team became the most efficient group in the entire company. Productivity improved. Employee morale improved. And eventually, the leadership team noticed. Evelyn Carter had always believed that leadership could come from anywhere. She had built her empire by trusting people others often overlooked. Daniel was exactly that kind of person. One afternoon, nearly 2 years after the balcony incident, Evelyn called Daniel into her office. The room was enormous, with glass walls overlooking the entire city skyline. The same skyline Daniel had nearly watched her fall into. But when he walked in, he wasn't nervous. He simply stood calmly, hands folded, waiting to hear what she needed. Evelyn had spent months observing his work quietly through reports and employee feedback. And what she discovered impressed her more than she expected. Daniel had become the kind of leader people trusted, not because of authority, because of character. So she offered him something he never imagined: a management position. Not in maintenance, but in operations leadership, helping oversee multiple company departments. It came with training, mentorship, and a salary far beyond anything Daniel had earned before. Daniel was speechless, not because he doubted his abilities, but because for the first time in years, the future didn't feel like something he was chasing. It felt like something opening in front of him. When he went home that night and told Sophia, she hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe. To her, her father had always been a hero. Now the world was simply catching up. But life has a way of testing even the strongest people. 3 years after Daniel joined Carter Innovations, the company faced another massive challenge. A global economic downturn struck the technology industry. Investors panicked. Stock prices fell. Several divisions began losing money rapidly. Executives across the industry started making harsh decisions: layoffs, budget cuts, department closures. Inside Carter Innovations, the pressure grew heavier every day. Board members demanded aggressive restructuring to protect profits. Thousands of employees feared losing their jobs, and Evelyn Carter found herself once again standing in the middle of a storm. But this time, she wasn't facing it alone. Daniel had become one of her most trusted advisors. He understood something many executives forgot: that behind every number on a financial report was a human life, a parent paying rent, a student paying tuition, a family depending on that paycheck. So instead of recommending layoffs, Daniel proposed something different. A plan that shocked the board. Instead of firing thousands of employees, Carter Innovations would temporarily reduce executive bonuses, restructure inefficient departments, and invest in new services that could create long-term growth. It was risky. Investors initially hated the idea, but Evelyn trusted Daniel's instincts. She approved the plan. The following year became the hardest in company history. Every department had to work harder than ever before. Executives took pay cuts. New strategies required long hours and difficult adjustments. But slowly, something remarkable happened. Employees rallied together. Productivity increased. New innovations emerged from teams that felt respected rather than discarded. Within 18 months, Carter Innovations didn't just survive the crisis. It grew stronger, stock prices recovered, new products entered the market, and industry analysts began praising the company's leadership approach. The decision that once seemed reckless became a case study in business schools around the world. But inside the company, everyone knew the real reason behind it. Daniel Reyes, the man who once carried chairs at a gala, had become one of the most respected leaders in a billion-dollar corporation. And through it all, he remained the same person. He still arrived early, still greeted employees by name, still brought Sophia to the community center where she once colored pictures at a tiny table. Only now Sophia was 15 years old, bright, confident, and dreaming about becoming a doctor. One evening after a long day at the office, Evelyn visited the same community center where she had first found Daniel years earlier. The building had changed. Carter Foundation funding had expanded it into a beautiful facility with classrooms, childcare programs, and scholarships for struggling families. But the heart of the place remained the same. Families helping families, children laughing, hope growing quietly. Evelyn walked through the hallway and noticed Sophia tutoring younger students in a small classroom. The girl who once waited quietly for her father now helped other children believe in their futures. Daniel stood nearby, watching with pride. When Evelyn joined him, neither of them spoke for a moment. They simply watched Sophia encouraging a shy little girl to keep trying her math problem. Finally, Evelyn smiled softly because she understood something deeply in that moment. If Daniel had not run toward that balcony years ago, none of this would exist. A life saved had become hundreds of lives changed. A single moment of courage had created a ripple that spread farther than anyone imagined. And before we finish this story, we want to ask you something from the heart. If this story reminded you that kindness can transform the world in ways we never expect, please take a moment right now to like the video, share it with someone who believes in good people, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach those who need hope. But before the story ends, we have one special request. Please go to the comments and write a one act can change everything, because that's the message this story carries. Years later, Daniel often thought back to that night on the balcony. The shattered glass, the broken railing. The moment his hand reached forward without thinking. At the time, it felt like nothing more than instinct, just helping someone in danger. But life has a mysterious way of turning small choices into powerful destinies. Saving Evelyn Carter didn't just change her life, it changed his. It changed Sophia's. It changed thousands of employees who kept their jobs during a difficult time. It changed families supported by the Carter Foundation, all because one man chose to run toward danger instead of walking away. And that's the quiet truth about heroes. They don't seek applause, they simply act when the moment calls. So tonight, wherever you are in the world, remember this simple truth. Kindness is never wasted, courage is never forgotten, and sometimes the smallest act of humanity can echo through countless lives for years to come. Because somewhere out there, someone might be standing on the edge of their own difficult moment, and your hand might be the one that pulls them back to safety.